The Pentagon is actively preparing for weeks of possible ground operations in Iran. United States officials have confirmed these preparations. They are part of a potential new phase in the ongoing conflict. This conflict, named Operation Epic Fury, began a month ago. The initial phase involved a joint U.S. campaign. The initial phase involved an Israeli campaign. The stated goals were to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. The stated goals were to destroy Iran's missile capabilities. Now, military planners are developing options for what could come next. These plans are being created to give the president maximum flexibility in the coming weeks. These preparations for ground operations do not mean a decision has been made. The White House has been clear on this point. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that it is the Pentagon's duty to prepare for all possibilities. This ensures the commander-in-chief has a full range of options. Whether President Donald Trump will approve any ground missions remains uncertain. The situation is fluid. The discussions are happening at the highest levels of the U.S. government. The world is watching to see if the air war will expand to include troops on the ground inside Iran. Thousands of American soldiers are already moving into the Middle East. Marines are already moving into the Middle East. This large-scale deployment signals a serious readiness for potential escalation. The movement of troops and equipment is a clear message to Iran. It shows the United States is prepared to take further action if necessary. The presence of these forces changes the strategic calculation for all parties involved. It raises the stakes significantly. The region is tense as these forces assemble and await their orders from Washington, D.C. for the next phase of this historic campaign. The conflict began on February 28, 2026. It started with a surprise attack by the United States. It started with a surprise attack by Israel. This attack took place while nuclear negotiations were underway. The initial strikes were intense and focused. The White House declared its objectives were to obliterate Iran's ballistic missile arsenal. The White House declared its objectives were to obliterate Iran's navy. The campaign also aimed to cut off Iran's support for its proxy groups across the region. Now, a month later, the focus is shifting. Planners are considering if ground troops are needed to achieve the final goals of the operation. Yes, but not confirmed yet. The Pentagon is preparing plans for possible ground operations, including special forces and troops. Up to 10,000 additional troops could be deployed to the region. However, no final decision has been approved by leadership. This would likely be limited raids, not a full invasion. More than 3,500 U.S. troops have recently arrived in the Middle East. This is a confirmed number from U.S. Central Command. Among these forces is the USS Tripoli, an amphibious assault ship. It carries about 2,500 Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. The arrival of the Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group significantly boosts U.S. naval and ground power in the area. This is not the end of the buildup. The White House is considering sending at least 10,000 additional combat troops in the coming days. The air campaign has already caused significant damage to Iran's military infrastructure. Iranian missile systems are now heavily degraded. Iranian air defense systems are now heavily degraded. Over 66% damaged. Missile production facilities damaged or destroyed. Drone production facilities damaged or destroyed. Naval production facilities damaged or destroyed. These strikes were designed to cripple Iran's ability to produce and launch advanced weapons. The goal was to remove the threat of Iran's long-range missiles. The goal was also to remove the threat of Iran's naval power. The effectiveness of these strikes is a key factor in deciding the next steps. The human cost of Operation Epic Fury is also becoming clear. So far, 13 American service members have been killed in action. Nearly 300 more have been wounded. These casualties are a stark reminder of the dangers involved in this conflict. The operation has been a joint effort with the Israeli military from the beginning. The losses underscore the real-world consequences of the military campaign. Every decision made in Washington has a direct impact on the lives of the men and women serving in the Middle East right now. Possible targets for limited ground operations have been discussed. U.S. officials quoted by the Washington Post mentioned specific locations, potential raids on Karg Island, a major Iranian oil terminal. Other coastal sites near the strategic Strait of Hormuz are also being considered. These would be targeted raids, not a full-scale invasion. The goal would be to seize or destroy key assets. Such operations would be very dangerous. They would represent a major escalation, moving from airstrikes to direct ground combat on Iranian soil. Heavy strikes already happened. War is expanding regionally. The conflict is no longer contained. Within Iran's borders, it has spread across the region. Iran's allies have joined the fight. Proxy groups have joined the fight. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, who are backed by Iran, have entered the war. They have launched attacks on ships in the Red Sea. They claimed responsibility for a missile attack targeting Israel. This was the first time Israel faced fire from Yemen in this war. The conflict is becoming a wider regional confrontation, drawing in more actors and creating new fronts. American forces in the region are also facing direct attacks. On Friday, an Iranian strike hit a Saudi airbase hosting U.S. troops. At least 15 U.S. service members were wounded in this attack. The Associated Press reported at least 5 were in serious condition. This direct attack on U.S. personnel is a significant escalation by Iran. It shows a willingness to strike American forces directly. That increases the risk of a much larger, direct war between the U.S. and Iran, moving beyond the current limited strikes. In the midst of the fighting, there have been many unconfirmed reports. Early on, some outlets reported top Iranian leaders were killed. CBS cited an intelligence source saying 40 Iranian officials died. It was unclear if they were all in one location. As the situation stands today, March 29, 2026, there are 3 likely paths forward. Visual. 3 paths. Overview. Limited raids. Air campaign continues. Wider war. The first path involves limited ground operations. This would mean U.S. forces conducting targeted raids on specific sites in Iran. These raids would not be part of a full-scale invasion. They would aim to destroy specific military targets or capture key individuals. This option carries significant risk but could achieve specific goals without a prolonged ground war. The second possible path is to continue the current strategy. That means relying on air and missile strikes and hitting targets from the sea. The goal would be to further degrade Iran's military capabilities. This approach avoids the high risks of putting American troops on the ground. The third and most dangerous path is a wider war. Plans are being made. The world holds its breath. Please subscribe, like, and share.